According to Greg Kading, Poochie Biggie.
That's the story, I believe.
Was Poochie known as a shooter?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was a hitter for real, for real.
In the vibrant landscape of hip-hop, few stories are as haunting as the death of Christopher Wallace, better known as the notorious B.I.G. or Biggie Smalls. As the beats echoed through the streets and tales of fame and rivalry played out on every radio, a shadow lurked in the background. This shadow bore a name, one not as famous as Biggie, but just as crucial to the narrative: Poochie. The underground world of rap was rife with secrets, and among them was the puzzle of Poochie's identity. Was he just a pawn in a larger game, or the puppet master of a sinister plot? The year was 1997. Los Angeles was a city glittering with stars, but beneath the shine, tensions ran deep. In a realm where lyrics carried weight and beats marked territories, Biggie's sudden and tragic end left the world in shock. Questions raced through the minds of fans and fellow artists alike. Who was behind it? What could possibly lead to the assassination of such a towering figure in music? Among the whispers, the name Poochie surfaced. An enigma in his own right, Poochie's life and ties became the stuff of urban legends. Interestingly, even as the hip-hop community sought answers, Poochie remained elusive, shrouded in mystery. With stories of gang affiliations, rumors of revenge, and tales of deep-rooted enmity, piecing together the puzzle of Poochie's role in Biggie's demise becomes a captivating endeavor. But as we delve deeper into this intricate web, we must ask ourselves, are we prepared to uncover the truths that lie beneath the surface? Are we ready to face the reality that sometimes legends are crafted not just by heroes but by villains too? As the story unfolds, brace yourself to journey through the streets of LA into the heart of the rap world, unraveling the legacy of Biggie and the enigmatic Poochie. Wardell Fouse, colloquially known as Poochie, was more than just a name whispered in hushed tones. His narrative is one of contrasts, a duality that spans the vibrant and vivacious world of hip-hop and the menacing undertones of gang streets. Shockingly, his life wasn't always mired in the depths of crime and controversy. A native of Los Angeles, Poochie's early days showcased hints of normalcy, echoes of aspirations, and dreams like any other youth. Los Angeles in the late 80s and early 90s was a battleground not just for turf and territories, but for dominance in the burgeoning world of hip-hop. The West Coast rap scene was blossoming, with names like Tupac Shakur and Dr. Dre starting to leave their indelible marks. But as with any story of growth and success, there were underlying currents of competition, rivalry, and, unfortunately, violence. Into this volatile mix entered Poochie, a man who would soon become synonymous with some of its darkest tales. Initially, Poochie's involvement in the world of crime seemed inconspicuous. Small misdemeanors, minor run-ins with the law, nothing that would signify the weight he would later carry in the world of gang affiliations and hip-hop rivalries. Admittedly, what transformed Poochie from an ordinary man into an entity feared and respected by many was his association with one of Los Angeles' most notorious gangs. The gang culture in LA was more than just a collection of miscreants. It was an ecosystem, a complicated network of loyalties, betrayals, business dealings, and, most prominently, a quest for power. As Poochie delved deeper into this world, his reputation began to grow. Interestingly, he wasn't just known for his brute force or ruthlessness, but also for his acumen. He had a knack for being in the right place at the right time, making the right friends, and, more importantly, the right enemies. By the mid-90s, Poochie's name was no longer just known in the back alleys of LA's gang territories. He had, intriguingly, found a foothold in the glamorous, glitzy, yet equally dangerous world of hip-hop. As East Coast rappers like Biggie started to make waves on the West Coast, the lines between rap rivalries and street gang wars began to blur. Poochie, with his unique position of power in both worlds, became a key player. His involvement in the music industry wasn't that of an artist or producer. He was the bridge, the liaison between the gang streets and the recording studios. Artists, especially those not native to the West Coast, needed to navigate the treacherous waters of LA's gang scene, and Poochie was often the anchor they sought. On top of that, the mid-90s saw a seismic shift in the world of rap. The East Coast-West Coast rivalry reached a fever pitch, with artists from both sides taking jibes at each other, not just through their lyrics, but through their actions. Tupac's shooting in 1996 added fuel to the fire, and as accusations flew, Poochie found himself in the midst of it all. There were rumors and whispers that Poochie had information that he was involved. But as was characteristic of the man, he remained an enigma, his cards close to his chest. As 1997 approached, Poochie's influence continued to grow. He had his fingers in multiple pies, from managing security details for prominent artists to allegedly being involved in the drug trade. It was clear that he had ascended from being just another gang member to someone who held significant sway in both the streets and the studios. But with power came enemies. And Poochie had his fair share. There were attempts on his life brushes with death that only added to his legion. He was seen by many as invincible, a force that couldn't be tamed. But every story has its turning point, a moment that defines its legacy. For Poochie, that moment was just around the corner, intertwined with the fate of one of rap's biggest icons. Biggie Smalls was not just a rapper. He was an institution, a beacon of hope for many in the East Coast rap scene. His forays into the West Coast weren't without controversy. And as the events of March 9, 1997 unfolded, the worlds of Biggie and Poochie would collide in ways no one could have predicted. The shots that rang out on that fateful night in Los Angeles were not just the echoes of a tragic end, but the beginning of a mystery that would baffle the world for years to come. Los Angeles' sprawling streets were a melting pot of cultures, dreams, and ambitions in the 90s. But amongst the glittering Hollywood lights, another form of art was gaining prominence: hip-hop. As the music grew, so did its ties with the city's dark underbelly. The intertwining of these two worlds wasn't just about street credibility, it was about survival, power, and dominance. Hip-hop, in its infancy, was a voice for the voiceless. It spoke of struggles, inequality, and life in the urban landscapes. But as it started gaining commercial success, the lines began to blur. Suddenly, it wasn't just about lyrics and beats. It was about territoriality, representation, and alliances. Moreover, these alliances often had implications far beyond music. Artists needed the streets for authenticity. In return, the streets needed the artists for relevance and power in a rapidly changing urban landscape. It was in this symbiotic relationship that figures like Poochie thrived. While artists like Tupac and Biggie were the face of the music, people like Poochie were its backbone. They provided the muscle, the street cred, and often the real-life narratives that the artists rapped about. But this marriage of convenience wasn't without its perils. While artists had their lyrical battles, the street enforcers often took these feuds literally. What started in the recording studios would end in dark alleyways and drive-bys. The East Coast-West Coast rivalry, which began as a war of words, soon became a war of bullets, with each side vying for control of the hip-hop empire. Artists began rolling with massive entourages, often filled with gang members who provided both protection and street credibility. However, this wasn't just about flaunting power. LA was treacherous terrain, and one misstep could be fatal. Gang territories were intricately mapped out, and crossing into a rival's turf without the right connections could spell disaster. Into this volatile mix, Poochie's reputation as a fixer grew. Need to organize a concert in a rival gang's territory? Poochie was your man. Want to collaborate with a West Coast artist without stepping on toes? Poochie could arrange it. Shockingly, he wasn't just a thug with a gun. He was a businessman who understood the value of connections, diplomacy, and, when needed, brute force. However, not all artists were comfortable with this growing influence of gangs in hip-hop. There were voices within the community who spoke out against this merger, fearing that the real essence of the music was getting lost. But these voices were often drowned out, either by the blare of gangsta rap on the airwaves or, tragically, by the sound of gunfire. Interestingly, while the world saw the glamorous lives of hip-hop artists, few understood the constant threats they lived under. Stories of extortion, kidnappings, and even M were common, albeit whispered in hushed tones. And as the 90s progressed, it became clear that no one, no matter how big or influential, was safe. This volatile atmosphere wasn't lost on the authorities. The LAPD was well aware of the intricate ties between gangs and hip-hop. However, their approach to the issue was often criticized. Many believed they treated all hip-hop artists as gang members, leading to racial profiling and unwarranted harassment. But amidst all this chaos, hip-hop thrived. It was, after all, a reflection of life on the streets, and life, as they say, goes on. Artists continued to churn out hits, often drawing from their personal experiences, making the music all the more authentic and relatable. However, every once in a while, a tragic event would shake the community to its core, reminding everyone of the fine line between art and life. One such event was Tupac's M in 1996. A giant in the world of rap, his death sent shockwaves across the industry. Accusations flew, with fingers being pointed at rival camps. The streets were abuzz with rumors, and amidst all the noise, Poochie's name cropped up repeatedly. While no direct evidence linked him to the crime, his proximity to the key players in the drama made many speculate about his role. The Tupac M was a precursor to an even bigger storm that was brewing on the horizon. The East Coast-West Coast rivalry was about to claim another victim, and the events leading up to it would further entrench Poochie's name in hip-hop folklore. The stage was set, the players in position, and the world of hip-hop was about to witness one of its darkest chapters. As the sun set on March 9, 1997, another legend would fall, and the world would be left grappling with questions that remain unanswered to this day. The urban tales of Los Angeles often whispered about the unpredictability of the nights, but none could have predicted the events of March 9, 1997. On that evening, the skies of LA seemed darker and the streets more silent. It was as if the city itself was holding its breath, anticipating the tragedy that was about to unfold. Christopher Wallace, popularly known as the notorious B.I.G. or Biggie Smalls, had been on the West Coast promoting his soon-to-be-released album, Life After Death. The album was awaited eagerly, expected to be another masterpiece in Biggie's already impressive repertoire. But life had other plans. That evening, Biggie attended a party at the Peterson Automotive Museum in Los Angeles. It was an event filled with the who's who of the hip-hop community. Music played, drinks flowed, and amidst the din of the revelry, no one could sense the lurking danger. As the night wore on, Biggie decided to leave. Accompanied by his entourage, he climbed into his SUV, probably thinking about the days ahead, the album release, and his soaring career. But as his vehicle stopped at a red light, another car pulled up alongside. Shockingly, without any warning, multiple shots rang out, piercing the night and the very heart of hip-hop. Biggie Smalls was pronounced dead shortly after. The news sent shockwaves through the music industry and the world at large. Another icon lost, another brilliant life cut short. Questions arose, whispers grew, and once again, as was the case with Tupac's death, speculations ran rife. Who could have wanted Biggie dead? Was it a result of the ongoing East Coast-West Coast feud? Or was there a deeper, more sinister motive behind the M? In the complex web of relationships and rivalries that characterized the hip-hop world of the 90s, Many names came up in connection with Biggie's M. Among them was Poochie's. Known for his proximity to several influential figures in the West Coast rap scene, Poochie's alleged involvement in the crime became a topic of much debate. Several theories floated around. Some believed that Poochie had been hired by a rival faction to execute the hit on Biggie. Others claimed he was merely a pawn in a larger game, with bigger players pulling the strings from the shadows. But amidst all these conjectures, one thing became clear. Poochie's role, whether direct or indirect, was significant. However, the reasons for his purported involvement remained shrouded in mystery. Some insiders believed it was a simple case of money. Poochie was allegedly paid a hefty sum for the hit. Others felt it was a matter of loyalty, with the hitman possibly acting to avenge Tupac's death. But as the days turned into weeks and weeks into months, concrete evidence linking Poochie to the M remained elusive. Interestingly, the very world that mourned Biggie's death also became instrumental in perpetuating the myths and rumors surrounding it. Songs were written with lyrics hinting at betrayal and vendetta. Hip-hop, true to its nature, mirrored life, blurring the lines between fact and fiction. The investigation into Biggie's M was fraught with challenges. Witnesses were hard to come by, and those who came forward often provided conflicting accounts. The LAPD, already under scrutiny for their handling of hip-hop-related cases, faced mounting pressure to solve the crime. However, the deeper they delved, the more convoluted the case became. Within the intricate maze of the investigation, Poochie's name came up time and again. Certain informants even claimed to have evidence of his involvement. But, in a world where loyalties shifted by the minute, distinguishing truth from fabrication was no easy task. As the years rolled on, Biggie's M became one of the most infamous unsolved cases in music history. Poochie, for his part, continued to remain a figure of intrigue. His activities after the M, his relationships within the hip-hop community, and his eventual fate became topics of countless discussions, articles, and documentaries. However, one undeniable fact remained. The night of March 9, 1997, changed the course of hip-hop forever. It wasn't just about the loss of a legend. It was a stark reminder of the dangers that lurked in the shadows, of the thin line that separated art from reality, and of the price that sometimes had to be paid for fame. Normally, behind every tale of power and infamy, there exists an intricate network of associations, allegiances, and enmities. This was no less true for Poochie, a man whose life seemed to be defined as much by his connections as by his actions. But to understand the full scope of his influence and reach, we must delve deeper into the tangled world of the Los Angeles underworld and the overlapping circles of the rap community. Darnell Poochie Bolton wasn't just another face in the crowd. His name carried weight, both for his affiliations with the mob Peru Bloods and for his known relationships with several big players in the West Coast rap scene. He was, in many ways, the connective tissue binding various elements of the street and the studio. Among Poochie's most talked about connections was Suge Knight, the co-founder of Death Row Records. Death Row was more than just a record label. It was a powerhouse, a symbol of West Coast rap's dominance in the 90s. But beyond the glitz and glamour of its chart-topping hits, it was also synonymous with controversy. Alleged ties to gang activities, violent confrontations, and a palpable aura of intimidation were all part of the Death Row mystique. And at the center of it all was Knight, a figure both revered and feared. Knight and Poochie's association was often the subject of speculation. Many believed that Poochie was one of his trusted enforcers, a man he could rely on for the dirtier aspects of the business. Their alliance, it was said, was forged, not just in friendship but in mutual interests and shared adversaries. However, Knight wasn't Poochie's only link to the music world. His proximity to several rappers and producers gave him a unique vantage point, allowing him to move seamlessly between the streets and the studio. But this dual identity also made him a polarizing figure. To some, he was a protector, a loyal friend who'd stand by you through thick and thin. To others, he was a menace, a reminder of the dangers lurking just outside the recording booth. Poochie's reputation, coupled with his extensive network, often put him at the crossroads of numerous events that defined West Coast rap in the 90s, from the volatile feuds between rival factions to the behind-the-scenes maneuverings of industry bigwigs. He was, in many ways, a silent player in a high-stakes game. But with influence came scrutiny. Poochie's name often cropped up in police investigations, and he was no stranger to the inside of an interrogation room. However, proving any wrongdoing was a different matter altogether. Many of those who could testify against him chose silence over cooperation, either out of loyalty or fear. Interestingly, Poochie's world wasn't just defined by his allies. His adversaries played an equally significant role in shaping his narrative. Given his affiliations, it was only natural that he'd make enemies along the way. Some were former associates turned rivals, while others were members of opposing factions, forever at odds with Poochie's crew. In this tumultuous world, information was currency, and secrets were weapons. Rumors of Poochie's involvement in various crimes, from extortion rackets to alleged hits, were rampant. And while many of these tales were likely exaggerated or fabricated, they added to the mythos of Poochie, turning him into a larger-than-life figure. But amidst the tales of treachery and power plays, there were also stories of his generosity. Those close to him often spoke of his willingness to help out in times of need, of his fierce loyalty to his friends, and of his undying love for his family. It was this duality, this blend of ruthlessness and compassion, that made Poochie such a compelling figure. However, as the 90s came to a close and the new millennium dawned, the landscape of West Coast rap began to change. New players emerged, old alliances crumbled, and the once indomitable Death Row Records found itself in a state of decline. But through it all, Poochie's influence remained undiminished. He was, after all, a survivor, a man who'd seen it all and lived to tell the tale. As mentioned earlier, the night of March 9, 1997, was one that would forever alter the trajectory of hip-hop. Biggie was fatally shot in a drive-by shooting in Los Angeles. The impact of this tragedy was profound, not just for the rap community, but for the entire music industry. And as the shockwaves reverberated, one question loomed large. Who was responsible? In the years following Biggie's death, numerous theories and speculations have attempted to unravel the mystery. Some pointed fingers at rival rappers, while others suggested deeper, more sinister forces at play. Interestingly, the initial investigations into Biggie's M didn't implicate Poochie. However, as time passed and leads grew cold, whispers about his potential involvement grew louder. Some suggested he was merely an enforcer, acting on orders from someone higher up the chain. Others believed he had a personal vendetta, a score to settle that culminated in that fateful shooting. Intriguingly, one theory that gained traction revolved around Poochie's close ties to Death Row Records and its co-founder, Suge Knight. Given the acrimonious history between Knight and Biggie and the long-standing feud between East Coast and West Coast rappers, many saw Poochie as the perfect conduit to execute a revenge plot. So was Poochie, as some alleged, the link between Biggie's death and Death Row's upper echelons? We certainly don't know, at least for now. But for all the rumors, concrete evidence was scarce. Poochie, for his part, maintained his innocence. Those close to him argued that while he might have had ties to the criminal underworld, he was no K. Still, the court of public opinion was divided, and Poochie's every move was now under scrutiny. And then, a significant development took the narrative in a different direction. A former LAPD detective looking into the case proposed that Poochie was hired by an unnamed individual to assassinate Biggie for a sum of $25,000. This theory, while sensational, was based on certain informants' testimonies and some circumstantial evidence. The revelation added fuel to the already blazing fire of speculation and turned Poochie into a central figure in the M investigation. The LAPD, facing immense pressure to solve the case, doubled down on their efforts. The focus now shifted to uncovering Poochie's movements and associations around the time of Biggie's death. Friends, family, and even distant acquaintances were questioned, their testimonies meticulously dissected for clues. Surveillance tapes, phone records, and eyewitness accounts were revisited, hoping to find the elusive piece that would complete the jigsaw. But despite these exhaustive efforts, the case remained stubbornly unsolved. Every lead seemed to hit a dead end. Every testimony was fraught with inconsistencies. And Poochie, though squarely in the spotlight, remained an enigma. Shockingly, amidst this web of conjecture, a former gang member came forward with a confession. He claimed to have been present when Poochie was handed the sum for the hit, but his testimony, riddled with contradictions, was largely dismissed as unreliable. As the years rolled on, the lack of a conclusive resolution to Biggie's M case only deepened the sense of injustice and frustration. For many, Poochie remained the prime suspect, the man who allegedly pulled the trigger on that ill-fated night. For others, he was a convenient scapegoat, a face to pin the blame on in the absence of a clearer culprit. But beyond the confines of the criminal investigation, Poochie's alleged involvement had other ramifications. His reputation, already controversial, was further marred. Friendships were strained, and old allies distanced themselves. The specter of Biggie's death seemed to haunt him at every turn, a constant reminder of the grave accusations he faced. However, it's worth noting that the world of hip-hop has always been rife with controversy and conspiracy theories. The deaths of its brightest stars, from Tupac Shakur to Biggie, have often been shrouded in mystery, giving rise to endless speculations and rumors. Poochie's case was no exception. As you may already know, in the urban sprawl of Los Angeles, the late 1990s was a period marked by territorial disputes, rampant gang violence, and a pervasive sense of unrest. The streets were a maze of ever-shifting alliances and enmities. The gang's code was simple: loyalty above all. And Poochie, by all accounts, epitomized this credo. His reputation as a loyal enforcer was well earned, with many attributing the gang's dominance in certain territories to his unyielding presence. Moreover, it was clear that Poochie was not someone to be crossed lightly. His response to perceived slights, real or imagined, was swift and often brutal. But there was another dimension to Poochie's involvement with the gang. It wasn't just about muscle and intimidation. There were deeper, more intricate ties at play. The gang's operations were diverse, spanning from drug tea to racketeering. Poochie was deeply involved in many of these activities, leveraging his connections to further the gang's interests and, by extension, his own. Interestingly, Poochie's gang affiliations extended beyond the borders of Los Angeles. He had contacts with organized crime syndicates in other cities and even other countries. These connections facilitated a range of illicit activities, from weapons smuggling to money laundering. And at the heart of this sprawling web of crime and corruption stood Poochie, orchestrating moves like a seasoned chess player. However, such influence came with its own set of challenges. As the gang expanded its operations, internal rifts began to emerge. Differing visions for the gang's future, coupled with the ever-present lure of power and money, led to clashes among its top echelons. Poochie, with his considerable influence, often found himself at the center of these disputes. Interestingly, while his criminal activities drew the attention of law enforcement, his gang affiliations offered a level of protection. The gang's deep-rooted presence in the community, coupled with a pervasive distrust of the police, made it difficult for the authorities to gather evidence against him. Informants were few and far between, and those who did cooperate often faced severe retribution. Yet, for all the power and influence he wielded within the gang, Poochie was not immune to its perils. His world was one of constant danger, where alliances could shift overnight and friends could turn foes at the drop of a hat. The same streets that had borne witness to his rise were also the stage for numerous attempts on his life. And then, there was the matter of Biggie's death. As rumors about Poochie's alleged involvement in the M gained traction, they added another layer of complexity to his already tumultuous existence. Some in the gang viewed the accusations with suspicion, questioning Poochie's loyalty and motives. Others rallied around him, seeing the allegations as a ploy by rival factions to weaken the gang. In this cauldron of suspicion and intrigue, Poochie's relationships within the gang began to strain. Long-standing allies became cautious, while newer members viewed him with a mix of awe and trepidation. The whispers about Biggie's death, whether true or not, had irreparably altered his standing within the gang. As the years wore on, Poochie's influence within the gang began to wane. The younger generation, with their own ambitions and visions, started to assert themselves. Poochie, once the undisputed kingpin, now found himself having to navigate a terrain that was rapidly changing. In the end, his story serves as a stark reminder of the transient nature of power and influence. For all his dominance within the gang, he couldn't escape the internal politics and external pressures that came with it. And as he navigated this treacherous landscape, the shadow of Biggie's death, with its swirl of rumors and accusations, was a constant companion. The criminal's life, punctuated with tales of audacity and raw power, was always headed towards an inevitable climax. In a world replete with vendettas, the margins between life and death were razor thin. Poochie, despite his dexterity in navigating these treacherous terrains, couldn't escape the grim Reaper's shadow that had long trailed him. Many knew him as a formidable figure, someone who always emerged from the dust unscathed, regardless of the chaos surrounding him. However, the 2000s brought unforeseen challenges. The once unchallenged empire he'd built started to show cracks. Newer players entered the scene, rival gangs bolstered their ranks, and the LAPD intensified its crackdown on gang-related activities. Amidst these shifting sands, whispers started circulating about a bounty on Poochie's head. Although he had many enemies, both inside and outside his circle, the magnitude and seriousness of this threat were unlike any other he had faced before. Was it a disgruntled business associate, a rival gang, or someone from his past seeking vengeance? Shockingly, the saga took a dark turn one evening in July 2003. Poochie, on one of his usual nocturnal rides through the streets of Los Angeles, met a fate that many had predicted but few believed would actually come to pass. A hail of bullets, sudden and relentless, ended the life of one of LA's most talked-about gang figures. The aftermath was a mix of shock, anger, and intense speculation. The streets buzzed with theories. Some claimed it was an inside job, a culmination of the growing discontent within his gang. Others pointed fingers at rival gangs who had long sought to dethrone Poochie from his position of power. Still, others believed it was related to Biggie's M, a final act in a saga that had gripped the hip-hop community for years. Interestingly, despite the numerous speculations, concrete evidence remained elusive. The LAPD, despite its vast resources, was unable to pin down a definitive suspect or motive. Witnesses were hard to come by, and those who did come forward offered conflicting accounts. In the wake of Poochie's death, the power dynamics in LA's underworld underwent significant shifts. Territories were realigned, alliances redrawn, and a new generation of gang leaders emerged. While Poochie's legacy lived on, the vacuum created by his death led to further infighting and violence. As the years passed, his death, much like Biggie's, transformed into urban legend. Stories about that fateful night were told and retold, each iteration adding a new layer of myth to the tale. Was he betrayed by someone close? Did he have premonitions about his impending doom? Did he, in his final moments, express regret or defiance? The answers to these questions remain buried with him. Moreover, the legacy of Darnell Poochie Bolton is a complex tapestry woven from threads of ambition, ruthlessness, loyalty, and treachery. While many remember him as a cold-blooded enforcer, others recall a charismatic leader, fiercely protective of those he considered his own. Some see him as a product of his environment, molded by the brutal realities of street life in L.A. Others view him as an architect of his destiny, someone who actively shaped the world around him for better or worse. In popular culture, Poochie's life and death continue to serve as inspiration. Films, documentaries, and music tracks reference the enigmatic figure, each portrayal offering a unique perspective. For some, he is a cautionary tale, a stark reminder of the perils of unchecked ambition. For others, he is a symbol of resilience and audacity, someone who dared to challenge the status quo. Admittedly, while the circumstances of Poochie's death remain shrouded in mystery, his life serves as a testament to the complex interplay of power, loyalty, and betrayal. In the annals of LA's underworld history, Poochie's name is etched in gold, a testament to a life that, while controversial, was undeniably impactful. Ultimately, the life of Darnell Poochie Bolton unfolds like a gripping novel filled with highs, lows, intrigue, and drama. His tale offers an intimate glimpse into the turbulent world of street life in Los Angeles, a realm where fortunes can change overnight and where the lines between friend and foe are perpetually blurred. The tales surrounding Poochie and the mysteries of his involvement in the Biggie M case have intrigued many over the years. But beyond the headlines and urban legends, there lies a deeper story, one of a man navigating the intricate webs of loyalty, power, and survival in a world where trust is a luxury few can afford. While Poochie's actions and decisions were often controversial, they were shaped by the volatile environment in which he lived. His story is a stark reminder of the complex socioeconomic factors that drive individuals towards a life in the shadows and the sacrifices they make in their quest for respect and power. Interestingly, despite the years that have passed since Poochie's death, his legacy continues to reverberate through the streets of LA. The tales of his exploits, both real and exaggerated, are recounted in hushed tones, serving as both cautionary tales and sources of inspiration for those who walk the path he once tread. In the end, the tale of Darnell Poochie Bolton serves as a mirror, reflecting the complexities and contradictions of urban life in America. It's a narrative that, while rooted in a specific time and place, possesses a universal resonance, reminding us of the thin line that separates right from wrong, hero from villain, and life from death. And that's it from us today. Until next time. Thank you for watching.